everyone, it's Aliyah Orozco
And Dan Rafael.
with Title Sports Network, and we are here at the Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin weigh-in. It just finished. What do you think about it?
You know, it was a pretty standard weigh-in, but then it got hot when the main event weighed in because that was a big Tank house. They were super excited for Tank, and they had a great stare down, and I'm glad they didn't do any like crazy stuff, but they did. You could see them cursing at each other and having their say, and then I got a little worried when they said something about Gervonta doing he was interviewed by Jordan Plant afterwards. Who's doing the weigh-in for the Prime Video folks in PBC about are we going to see that backflip? And on the stage at the weigh-in, he did the backflip. I was like, oh my God, what did he get? Break an ankle, not landed, and then the fight's off. But anyway, he landed it good, and so thank God. But I would advise fighters not to do backflips at weigh-ins.
Why was I thinking the same thing? I was freaking out because anything can go wrong in that moment. You really don't know when you're like in the air.
And there's other people on stage, and who the heck knows. But anyway, he came through that, and I think we're in for a good fight. That's the way I look at it.
Me too. And we also have another great fight, the co-main event, Benavidez versus Gvozdyk. How do you see that fight going?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Gvozdyk was absolutely shredded at the weigh-in. I mean, I'm like, how does a guy that's 37 who retired for 3.5 years get in that kind of shape? Because I covered him in his absolute prime when he was champion, and he always was good, but he was never in that kind of condition. So he's I guess put the work in, I suppose. But look, he's still 10 years older. Whatever kind of shape he got in, he's still 10 years older than what I believe to be a prime David Benavidez, who said, and I believe him, did not have the kind of troubles to make the weight that he did when he was fighting at 168, because now he's stepping up to 175. So I think it's the kind of fight where, Gvozdyk he was a tremendous champion at his time. He was a top Olympian, top amateur, and had a heck of a professional career. It's not an easy out by any means. So I think he's going to give David some good competition, at least early on. But like I think typical David fights is when a guy does that, take the Caleb Plant fight, for example. Competitive early, and then eventually David gets rolling, and it turns into a beatdown in that last handful of rounds. I think that's the kind of fight we're probably looking at.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And the undercard, we have a stacked undercard. What fight are you looking forward to most on it?
Well, I'm anxious to see Gary Antoine Russell. I've always been a fan of his fighting style. He's exciting. He's obviously a tremendous puncher because he's won 17 fights all by knockout. He's in with a good fighter, not a great fighter in Puello, but Puello has been a champion. Puello is experienced. He can box. I think he seems to take a decent punch. But to me, it's about, can Gary Russell take the next step? I mean, it's time to, if you're going to be in the championship level, it's time to get on with it. He's been very inactive, so I'm excited to see him back in the ring and show us what we've all thought for a long time, that he can fulfill the potential. But if you're not going to be Puello, you're not going to do that.
Do you think that fight's going to go the distance, or it's going to be a knockout?
I think Gary's going to continue the knockout streak at some point in that fight, and he'll get the interim title of a WBC 140-pound title, and then hopefully we'll open up for some other bigger fights because the belt will be attractive to somebody, or they'll order a fight, because we all know that the 140-pound weight class has got a lot of good talent in it right now.
Oh yeah, it is stacked with talent. And speaking of titles, there's also the Carlos Adames fight defending his title. What do you think about that one?
Well, first of all, I was happy that the WBC finally did what they did, which was to, strip Charlo, because not that I'm hopeful that fighters be stripped of titles, but if you're not going to defend the title for like 3 years, you shouldn't be holding the title. And Adames had won the interim belt fair and square, and at some point you got to elevate the guy, and they finally made the move. But Adames is a good fighter. He looked in awesome shape. Terrell Gausha, who was his opponent, was an Olympian, was a great amateur fighter, has had a good professional career, but in my opinion, he was really at his best at 154. Now, Adames also fought at 154, but I think he's better at 160 than he was at 154. So I think similar maybe to what happens in the fight between Benavidez and Gvozdyk, where you see, Gausha uses great boxing skills early on, maybe give him a little bit of trouble. But I think by the end of the fight, it's going to probably be Adames, kind of beating him down a little bit. We'll see.
Well, thank you so much for this breakdown, Dan. We always love these. And any last words for the fight fans watching? Anything you think they can expect to see tomorrow night?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, the fight, it's not on the main pay-per-view card, but the guy I've been following since he basically has come on the scene, and I'm very excited to see him, and that's the middleweight Elijah Garcia, who's in one of the preliminaries. He's a super prospect, tremendous young fighter, and I'll make sure I'm in my seat for that one.
And he was supposed to have that fight with, how do you say it? Kyron Davis earlier this year, but it wasn't made.
Well, what happened with that was that fight was supposed to be one of the preliminaries, but he got ill.
Yeah,
and they had to
legend.
postpone the fight, so it was rescheduled for this card. So I'm glad they were able to keep it together, and he's not ill, and he's going to go through with the fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. He's a great young fighter.
He is. I'm really excited for that one, too. Well, thank you so much, Dan, and everybody make sure to watch the fight tomorrow night, June 15th at the MGM Grand, and it will be live on Amazon Prime. Bye, everyone. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Until next time.